Paramaha. After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni. Purport.
Next, no.
Okay.
It's okay. Next.
सुभद्रा चोतरा कृपा अन्या च जन्मपा ज्ञातया सुतया स्त्रियः. When they saw Vidur return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthir, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjay, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of the Kauravas, and other ladies with the children, all hurried to him in a great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period.
Yeah. Next verse.
तमेवागता अभिसंगम्य विधिवत् परिष्वङ्गाभिवादने. With great delight, they all approached him as if life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces.
Next.
Rajastambaraham chakshe shvetasa paragajana. Translation. Due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a reception.
Next.
After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened.
Purport.
Purport. King Yudhishthir was expert in reception also, even in the case of his family members. Vidura was well received by all the family members by exchange of embraces and obeisances. After that, bathing and arrangements for a sumptuous dinner were made, and then he was given sufficient rest. After finishing his rest, he was offered a comfortable place to sit, and then the king began to talk about all happenings, both family and otherwise. That is the proper way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy. According to Indian moral codes, even an enemy received at home should be so well received that he will not feel any fearful situation. An enemy is always afraid of his enemy, but this should not be so when he is received at home by his enemy. This means that a person, when received at home, should be treated as a relative. So, what to speak of a family member like Vidura, who was a well wisher for all the members of the family? Thus, Yudhishthir Maharaj began to speak in the presence of all the other members.
So, one very important lesson is to take care of the guest. We are not at our home now. We are in our master's home, Krishna's home, Radha Rasberi's home, in his palace. And we are staying as servants. So any visitor is coming to this palace, he is not coming for us. He is coming for our master. So when a master's guest is coming, how should the servant treat the guest? Same as master. Even if the guest coming is your village enemy number one, but he's not coming here to meet you. He's coming here to meet the master. So master's guest should be treated nicely even if you dislike that guest. Otherwise, you will displease your master. And our very existence in this temple is to please Radha Ras Bihari. So all visitors, we should be very welcoming to them, even unknown people. Some visitor may be there, suddenly he meets you on the way. He doesn't know anybody and he asks you, where is toilet? Or where is this person whom I want to meet? We should very respectfully answer, politely answer, rather than not be happy about that interference. And what to speak about devotees coming from other temples in our Brahmachari ashram. We should be very respectful to them. We should help them get accommodation or get prasadam or whomever they want to meet or guide them to proper sources of their requirements. So they feel welcome. With all understanding that I should not do anything which will displease Radha Ras Bihari. Otherwise, he will not keep me here. So the visitors, the guests, the family, the in-house devotees, we should be very polite. We should treat them nicely, behave them with them nicely, as a servant of Radha Ras Bihari. So here, even an enemy coming to the house should feel comfortable. That is Vedic culture. Should be treated as a relative. He should not feel fearful. And they used to do that. When Krishna, Arjuna and Bhim went to Jarasandha, he knew they are enemies, but they would eat and sit and talk nicely. Daytime they would fight to kill each other. And night time they would sit and dine and feast and talk here and there. Like to sportsmen, daytime they want to defeat each other, night time they are friends. They don't have that kind of enviousness towards each other. So here we should not have enviousness towards other devotees in the ashram. We may have services which may compete, like 2 preachers or 2 IVF preachers or 2 congregational preachers or 2 book distributors or 2 people in management. But that should be all just for the service sake. But otherwise we should be very good friends, very good relations, taking care of each other, wishing each other's growth, becoming happy if other is successful, not becoming envious. Otherwise Radha Ras Bihari will not be happy with us. If one devotee is successful and another devotee is unhappy about that success, will Radha Ras Bihari be happy with that devotee who is unhappy? Not at all. So we should not have this enviousness. Should be having very healthy attitude of appreciation and help each other. That will what please Krishna, that will please Radha Ras Bihari rather than our individual performance of success. So we should be very careful. Staying in the ashram, we should be very careful about this. That there are departments to have easy management systems. But don't create those departments in the heart. Let them remain in the buildings. Don't create those boundaries in the heart that ये तो उस department का है, ये तो उस group का है, ये तो उसका चेला है. Don't create all this. There's no meaning to all this. It is like fire which will burn us and burn the institution. So we should all be having very healthy, polite relationships to please Radha Ras Bihari. 2 good sons, whole day fighting with each other. How will father be pleased? Obedient to me, fighting among themselves, father will not be pleased. So we are obedient to Radha Ras Bihari, but fighting among ourselves, Krishna will not be pleased. So we should put some effort to overcome such attitudes, such qualities, such behaviors, such thoughts. It's only because of our illusion or our attachments. We should just give it up. Then we'll be more peaceful and happy, seeing others happy. Okay? Next. Yes, Mike.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, when we hear that during Mahabharat war time, daytime they used to fight and night time, as you said, that they used to sit together. So it's like, for me personally, very difficult to understand, because when Arjuna's son was killed, or Ashwatthama's father was killed. So then they are already Kshatriya, having more passion in them. And then when their kinsmen got killed, so evening time sitting together, so how could they used to settle down all these things? In fact, the Kaurava side, they were not practicing Krishna consciousness also. From Pandava side, it is understood. So how such healthy
So
relationship?
just like sports, Kshatriya would see war as a sports. It's not like present day. So just like sports. Of course, there will be some enmity because of Draupadi's insult and Abhimanyu's death. Definitely it became in that way. But in general, they would see as sports. So some of the leaders were not in good terms like Duryodhana and Bhim and Arjun. But from Yudhishthira's side, it was not like that. And from Bhishma Pitama and Dronacharya's side, it was not like that. So Yudhishthira and Bhishma Pitama, who are opposite parties in the war, they would still have cordial relationships. So there were some, but other soldiers and all, they would have very cordial relationships among themselves. So there were only some parties like Duryodhan, Karna, Arjun, Bhim, Shakuni, Dushasan, Draupadi, they would have this kind of thing. But others, they were all the other lakhs of soldiers in both the sides. They would meet each other and everything would be better. So they will see it as a sport.
So still like all these soldiers seeing their father, sons, brothers getting killed and considering that thing as sport and having this healthy relationship. So that's the one thing. And here one thing like in temple we practice all these activities in mode of goodness, even pure goodness. We want to practice, but still so much passion is there that we fight among each other. So how these two things we can
So
synchronize?
that's why we, when we are reading and discussing this, that's why we read this purport and I was trying to highlight it, that we should come out of this lower mode. Even though we are practicing and trying to practice in mode of goodness, lower mode is becoming heavy. And because lower mode is becoming heavy, such actions are happening. So we have to, that means improve ourselves and become more and more into more of mode of goodness, become more and more broad-minded and accept everybody's success as my success. The only problem happens because I see you and me. We should not see it that way. We should see ourselves as one. One ISKCON Juhu, one Brahmachari Ashram, one ISKCON, not you and me. If something is good for you, it should be good for me. Something is bad for you, should be bad for me. Something is good for me, should be good for you. Something is bad for me, should be bad for you. That kind of relationship we should develop among ourselves. If we don't have that kind of relationship, then there will always be this passion and ignorance influencing us. Right? So it's a everyday effort to overcome passion and ignorance. So even when we are trying to be in goodness, Maya is trying to bring us down, and we have to keep struggling to keep ourselves afloat, above, upwards. So that's why education is necessary. Is that okay? So we should not create unhealthy relationships and no violence. Better be silence. Next.
Text Suvacha. अपि स्मरत नो युष्मत् पक्ष छाया समेदितान् विपत्कनात् विषाग्ने अधेर मोचिता यत् समात्कृत. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson."
No, next verse.
Mandalam Tirthani Kshetra Mukhyani Sevitani Bhutale. While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service?
Purport.
Vidura went out from the palace to detach himself from household affairs, especially political intrigues. The As referred to herein before, he was practically insulted by Duryodhana's calling him a son of a Shudrani, although it was not out of place to talk loosely in the case of one's grandmother. Vidura's mother, although Shudrani, was the grandmother of Duryodhana, and funny talks are sometimes allowed between grandmother and grandchildren. But because the remark was an actual fact, it was unpalatable talk to Vidura, and it was accepted as a direct insult. He therefore decided to quit his paternal house and prepare for the renounced order of life. This preparatory stage is called Vanaprasthashram or retired life for traveling and visiting the holy places on the surface of the earth. In the holy places of India like Vrindavan, Haridwar, Jagannath Puri and Prayag, there are many great devotees and there are still free kitchen houses for persons who desire to advance spiritually. Maharaj Yudhishthir was inquisitive to learn whether Vidura maintained himself by the mercy of the free kitchen houses. Chatras. Chatras.
So, a temple serving prasadam is very much part of the temple. Even big temples in India we see, like Jagannath Puri, we get prasadam. Udupi or Rameshwaram, Tirupati. So we should be happy to distribute prasadam when we have programs, and sometimes we see some audience come only for the prasadam. We should not get disturbed by that. They are coming all the way for prasadam, even though they have food in their house. And even though they have money which they spend for traveling, they could have gone to a restaurant and ate. But still they are coming to temple, that means they are devotees, they want to have prasadam. They are not going to a restaurant. So we should not think negatively of them. Somebody wants lecture and prasadam, somebody is at this point of his spiritual growth, only prasadam is satisfied. We should still provide prasadam, gradually they will grow. So even if you do outreach program and you see less people coming for classes, more people coming for prasadam, we should still distribute, knowing well that distribution of prasadam, distribution of books, distribution of class is all devotional service, and gradually encourage people to become more serious practitioners by hearing a class. So we should not neglect people just because they are coming for prasad. India has a certain class of people who are poor, who may be attracted to prasad just as food to save money or whatever. Still, Krishna is providing, especially ISKCON Jew, Krishna is providing. And if there is prasad left, we should be happy to distribute. And if there are guests coming out of Mumbai, sometimes sadhus come or general people out of, we should be happy to give them one meal. It's not a big deal. So such big temples should be happy to give prasadam. Those who want to practice spiritual life or start practicing spiritual life. So Srila Prabhupada's program, prasadam distribution, Srila Prabhupada's program, Food for Life. Okay? Yes, Chaitanya.
Somewhere in this I'll Build You a Temple, I read that Giriraj Maharaj was asking Prabhupada whether we should go out and distribute. Like they had just started the Food for Life in Juhu. And then he asked Prabhupada whether we can go out and distribute. So there Prabhupada, he discouraged. He told that just those who come in the temple, we give them prasadam. So many times this recent what is going on, Food for Life, we go out and then mainly the motive is advertising it and then collecting donations based on that annadan. So is it how do we see it?
Well, there was a proposal, I guess what you're talking about in the contest, that ISKCON gets some money and they do cooking and go out and distribute to poor people. So ISKCON is not for just those who are economically poor. ISKCON is for everybody. We don't distinguish between rich and poor because both are poor in terms of spiritual knowledge. So we give to everybody. If you have resources, you go out and distribute. That time, new temple, the resources were such that, okay, those who come inside and take prasad, we focus on them. But Prabhupada encouraged Food for Life to go out and distribute prasadam. So it should not be just for collecting donations, though it is also part of fundraising, is part of very much part of required, because those whom we approach to give funds, we are not approaching them as business or salesmen. We are not approaching them as beggars. We are giving them an opportunity to give their income to Krishna, because that's also devotional service. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter, always think of me, and if you cannot do that, practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, and if you cannot do that, work for me. So those who otherwise don't practice bhakti, we go to their offices and homes and tell them, okay, you give your hard-earned income to Krishna. That is also devotional service. So distribution of prasadam, if the temple can expand, it is very nice. It should be done. And if in-house we do, those who come, at least we give some halwa or something like that, as we do here, that's perfect. If you can give full meals, that's more better. Srila Prabhupada even wrote a letter like that in all temples there should be full meal given to devotees who come. Of course, that time we didn't have lakhs of visitors like this. So if it can be expanded, that is nice. No, giving food is charitable. Giving prasadam, giving food is social service. Giving prasadam is devotional service. So how much percentage of beggars are coming? Beggars are there, that's why they are eating. But there are lots of percentage of those who are earning also are eating, because they appreciate prasadam, they respect prasadam. And by having prasadam, they get purified. And their sukruti the account of sukruti is opening up. And that's how they become devotees. Many people become devotees by prasadam. One samosa, one vada, they become devotees by that. And they don't forget that. Right? So, we should, okay, there is some attitude while distributing prasadam that to distribute only to hungry or poor person. That's born out of our natural sympathy. But spiritual knowledge is everybody is poor. Even rich person is poor in spiritual knowledge. So there are some people who give money to ISKCON and say, I want to feed 100 people in Anath ashram or something like that. So we oblige them, because finally we are distributing prasadam and they are getting connected to ISKCON as a donor. So when they are satisfied with one feeding, they appreciate the temple service and they give money for deity worship also, or books also. They say, okay, I give 100 Gitas also. So that's how cultivation happens. So we should not judge it in that way. So that's all forming a relationship where we are helping those people who are receiving prasadam to become devotees and who are providing money to become devotees. So it's a longer, there's a broader picture to it. Right? So the attitude should not be of that poor people. ISKCON is not targeted food for poor people. It's for everybody. Even rich people need prasadam. They need more actually. Right? Okay?
In
Yes.
connection to same, like is this kind of attitude of distributing prasadam and then advertising it so that we can get more donation, so which is actually going on in many temples. So that is according to Prabhupada or scriptures, how is it?
Well,
in line?
as an institution nowadays, we have to do some publicity, because people are not otherwise observing. इसको कहते हैं चिल्लाओ. You need help, you have to shout. So we should look at it in this way, that we are giving opportunity to others to engage in Krishna's service. And that is fine. And time, place, circumstances, it should not be overdone. It should be done in a proper time, place, circumstances. So it's okay to shout. It's okay to shout to gather more people. So the target audience is not those who are already giving. Target audience those who are not giving. So at least they will start giving. And the goal should not be I want money. The goal should be their money should be engaged in Krishna service. The attitude should be that Lakshmi is present and Lakshmi should be engaged in the service of Rasbihari.
So in this case, then we show more kind of our this poor people. We are distributing to poor people. So that is more emphasized in that way, that we're distributing. We attract their sympathy, and then we try to get some donation.
So because the target audience as of now doesn't understand the value of prasadam to rich people. They don't understand that. So we are using their sympathy to engage them in Krishna service. So we are using their misconception to engage them in Krishna service. At some point of time we have to remove their misconception also. But we are not able to access them. So we use their misconception to connect to them. And when we connect to them, we have access to them. And when we have access to them, we can remove the misconception that not just poor people require food, rich people also require prasadam. Right? So for example, there's a big rich man who has sympathy for poor beggars. One way to approach him is to go and tell them, your sympathy is all wrong. You should have sympathy for everybody, not just for poor beggars, because everybody is poor in spiritual knowledge. He will not even meet you. Right? Because he thinks I am correct. But if you tell them, look, I have some project where 100 poor people I have to feed every day for 30 days, he may give money. And when he gives money and sees the project is successful and sees you honest, he will become friend. When you become friend, then you can invite him and say, look, come to temple, hear this class, read this book, and his misconception will start reducing. So that's a platform where we are connecting to him.
And Prabhuji, what about taking Lakshmi in the name of prasadam, donation for the Food for Life, and using that money for Lakshmi for some other service?
That's not good. That should be avoided. Because if the donor comes to know, he will lose faith in ISKCON. So we should be very careful about it. Money matters, we should be very transparent. ISKCON, at least in India, doesn't produces the accounts in public domain. But ideally, charitable institutions are required to show how much money came, for what purpose it came, and how much it was distributed, for what purpose it was spent, and how much is the balance. This is ideal requirement of all charitable institutions. And it's good if we maintain that before there is a pressure to maintain it. There is a compliance to be done that. But in India, many things chalta hai. But it's good if we improve the standards. Okay?
Prabhuji, after class, the devotees should get prasadam. So, but we see in Bhagavatam class morning time, there are many outsiders who come, but there is no facility for prasadam for them.
So we have Sundays only outsiders, other
Every
other
day,
days?
every day I'm talking
Okay, so management thing we'll not discuss here. I will put it in the... Sundar Chaitanya will note it down. We'll put the agenda in the next meeting. That's a good point. Okay? Huh? But some of them we give coupons. They eat in Gopal's, they honor in Gopal's Prasadam Hall. Yeah. Some of those who are known to devotees, they get prasadam. Those who are not known to devotees, though they don't get prasadam. Sundays we give, but we can talk about this. This is a good feedback. Yeah, see, we got a solution also from the same department. Yeah, so thank you for that. Okay? Yes, give the mic to Madhav Sundar Prabhu.
हरे कृष्ण। प्रभु जी, यहाँ पे विदुर जी को इंसल्ट किया है दुर्योधन ने, तो एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि विदुर जी को इंटरनल पोटेंसी हेल्प की, वो के पैलेस छोड़ के चले गए पिलग्रिमेज पे। और दूसरा पॉइंट है कि विदुर जी को सो दुर्योधन विदुर जी को शुद्रानी का पुत्र बोल रहे हैं, विच इज़ करेक्ट ओनली, तो करेक्ट है। तो ऐसा एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग आता है कि वो बुरा क्यों लगना चाहिए उनको, कि ही इज़ करेक्ट एक्चुअली, वो शुद्रानी के पुत्र है।
देखिए,
तो
जस्ट फॉर एग्जाम्पल, सपोज आपको किसी ने बोल दिया कि माधव सुंदर बहुत खाता है, मोटा हो गया है, और एक्चुअली किसी फैट डिवोटी को बोल दिया बहुत खाता है, मोटा हो गया है, किसको ज़्यादा बुरा लगेगा? जो सच में ही है ना बोला ना, तो बुरा क्यों लगेगा? आपको ज़्यादा बुरा लगना चाहिए ना कि आप तो नहीं खाता है, मोटा नहीं है आप, लेकिन बुरा ज़्यादा किसको लगेगा? बिकॉज अनपैलेटेबल थिंग टू से, राइट? सो ही इज son of Shudra mother, but it's an unpalatable thing to say in this way. That too, he didn't said it in a normal conversation. He said it when he was against and angry against him. So when you are angry and against somebody and saying an unpalatable truth, that's an insult. You are saying it in a very jovial conversation, it's a different thing. But when you are saying it when the chemistry is negative, the purpose of saying is actually to insult him, that you are a lower person. Actually, he wanted to insult him and he used truth to insult him. So what he said we don't have to go through. That is truth anyway. But why he said? To insult him. That aap layak nahi hai. You are a lower person. You are son of a Shudrani. That means you are not qualified to stand in front of me. Like that. So basically it was an insult. So it's not just the content, it is the attitude and the purpose. कोई बोला बच्चा है, राइट? क्यूट बच्चा है, अच्छा है, बच्चा है बोल दिया तो बुरा लगता है ना, कि भाई मेरे को बच्चा बोल दिया, मुझे आ गई, मुझे बच्चा बोल दिया, राइट? सपोज आपसे गलती हो गई और कोई आपको डांट रहा है, मैं बोलूँ अरे बच्चा है छोड़ दो, यू विल फील हैप्पी अबाउट इट, राइट? बट आई से बच्चा है, नॉट क्वालिफाइड टू डू समथिंग, यू विल नॉट फील हैप्पी अबाउट इट, बिकॉज आई एम यूजिंग द ट्रूथ टू इंसल्ट यू. Okay? So the bigger thing is there was a attempt to insult him, and insulting a senior person is not good, even if there is some truth in it. Okay? Next.
Translation. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Purport. The personality of Godhead is omnipresent by his diverse potency everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in an electric bulb. A pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of Lord and the Lord in everything. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human being by an atmosphere surcharged with the presence of Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places. Take lessons from them. Try to apply such instructions in practical life and thus gradually prepare oneself for ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead. To go to some holy places of pilgrimage does not mean only to take a bath in Ganges or Yamuna or to visit the temple situated in those places. One should also find representatives of Vidura who have no desire in life save and except to serve the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is always with such pure devotees because of their unalloyed service, which is without any tinge of fruitive action or utopian speculation. They are in the actual service of the Lord, specifically by the process of hearing and chanting. The pure devotees hear from the authorities and chant, sings, and write of the glories of Lord. Mahamuni Vyasadeva heard them from Narad, and then he chanted them in writing. Sukdev Goswami studied them from his father, and he described them to Parikshit. That is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, by their actions, the pure devotees of the Lord can render any place into a place of pilgrimage, and the holy places are worth the name only on their account. Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place, and what to speak of a holy place rendered unholy by the questionable action of interested person who try to adopt a professional life at the cost of reputation of a holy place.
So Vidura, a pure devotee, is personification of Tirtha, holy place. Because when you come in contact with a holy place, you get purified. They make the holy place holy when it's become unholy by unholy men. When impious people go and deposit their sins or perform sinful activities in the holy place, that place becomes contaminated. And pure devotees, when they visit, they purify it. So association of pure devotees is very, very essential, very, very effective, and very, very powerful. One pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, landed in the unholy place of America. And what a big revolution in few years. Such a big society and millions of devotees today in practically each city of the world. Each major city of the world. So when we have an opportunity to serve and hear from a pure devotee, that's something great and something top priority. Everything else should be later. You should always use that an opportunity. Okay? And when we go to a holy place, we should not go for picnic. We should go for chanting, reading, hearing, preaching, increasing our purification. Next.
My uncle, you must have visited Dwarka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes?
Next verse.
सर्वतत्सर वर्णयात् यथा संभवः. Thus being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthir, Mahatma Vidur gradually described everything he had personally experienced except the news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty.
Next.
Nanvapriyam durvishaham runam swayam mastitam navadeyet sakarunem dukkitan drashtum kshamaha. Compassionate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come of their own accord.
Purport.
According to Niti Shastra, a civic class, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. Distress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature. So, one should not aggravate it by propaganda. For a compassionate soul like Vidura, especially in his dealings with the beloved Pandavas, it was almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of Yadu dynasty. Therefore, he purposefully refrained from it.
Okay? Next.
Thus, Mahatma Vidur, being treated just like godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period, just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother, and in this way bring happiness to all the others.
Purport.
Saintly persons like Vidur must be treated as well as denizens from heaven. In those days, denizens of heavenly planets used to visit homes like that of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and sometimes persons like Arjun and other used to visit higher planets. Narad is spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly, not only within the material universes but also in the spiritual universes. Even Narad used to visit the palace of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and what to speak of other celestial demigods. It is only the spiritual culture of the people concerned that makes interplanetary travel possible even in present body. Maharaj Yudhishthir therefore received Vidur in the manner of reception offered to demigods. Mahatma Vidur had already adopted the renounced order of life, and therefore he did not return to his paternal palace to enjoy some material comforts. He accepted out of his own mercy that was offered to him by Maharaj Yudhishthir. But the purpose of living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother Dhritarashtra, who was too much materially attached. Dhritarashtra lost all his state descendants in the fight with Maharaj Yudhishthir, and still, due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhishthir. On the part of Maharaj Yudhishthir, it was quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting manner. But acceptance of such magnanimous hospitality by Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. He accepted it because he thought that there was no alternative. Vidur particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to higher status of spiritual cognition. It is the duty of enlightened soul to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidur came for that reason. But talk of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidura attracted the attention of members of family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. This is a way of spiritual realization. The message should be heard attentively, and it's spoken by realized soul. It will act on the dormant heart of conditioned soul. And by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self realization.
So Dhritarashtra was defeated in the battle. So ideally he should vacate the palace and go away. But citing his helplessness as a blind person and elder uncle of Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was okay to stay in the palace and take the food and hospitality of Yudhishthira Maharaj. And that was because of his material attachment. And he was still called Maharaj, Dhritarashtra Maharaj, King Dhritarashtra. Even though Yudhishthira was king, but he was called king and he was happy to hear that, I am king. So Vidura wanted to preach to him whole life, and now Vidura was more mature after hearing from Maitreya Rishi. So he came back that let me finish one project at least and preach one person and preach this foolish Dhritarashtra. So he came back to preach to him, and what he preached and spoke was so enlightening, not only for Dhritarashtra but for everybody. That is how when a self-realized soul speaks and a conditioned soul hears repeatedly, the conditioned soul can get self-realized just by hearing, just by repeatedly hearing, just by attentive hearing. So we should give our ears, we should hear, keep on hearing, and all possible transformations will happen in our heart. We get self-realized just by hearing. Okay? Yes, Sharad.
In the previous shloka, distress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature, so one should not aggravate it by propaganda. So, why can't it be taken it as even the one who is doing propaganda, he is the agent of the laws of nature only? To actually give distress, because nothing happens on its own accord.
Yes. So when somebody is doing propaganda, you accept it like that. But you don't choose yourself to do a propaganda. You don't. Krishna, nature will choose you as an agent to do propaganda.
Correct.
You choose yourself to do propaganda. You see the difference?
Generally,
agent means somebody who's appointed, not somebody who chooses himself.
yeah, I understood. But generally, it doesn't happen like that. The person who does the propaganda doesn't considers him as an agent, but he actually does it out of his own nature, swabhav.
That's why this is mentioned. One should avoid that. One should avoid it. That's what it is mentioned. It's not. See, this. There are lots of factors here. Vidura and Pandava's relationship, Pandavas and Krishna's relationship, and Krishna and Yaduvan's disappearance. All these factors are also there. But in general, in such contest, we should not be a person to do propaganda by our choice.
It was a fact. Like, in the sense, it was a fact also. At the same time, if one sees it as a agent of the nature, then the other person will not be should not be affected by that.
See, suppose a devotee breaks the regulative principle. Fact. Should I go and tell everybody?
No.
Why? The answer is in the purport. Don't do propaganda. Right?
But the idea is that devotee, if he comes to know, he will be further demotivated.
Even if he doesn't come to know, is it good to do propaganda or somebody's fall down? No, that's the whole point. We cannot say, I am becoming agent of nature. We are choosing to do it. Na? Wherever you are choosing is karma, not nimitta, not instrumental, not agent. Nimitta is when it happens to you without your choice. Like you walk and an ant gets killed. You became nimitta of the ant's death. But you take a lens to search an ant and a hathoda and okay, then you're doing a murder. Because you are not nimitta there. You are choosing to kill. So nimitta means nature will use you to do something not by your choice. But if you are choosing, then it's your karma. So don't do propaganda. If you are chosen by nature, it will happen anyway. But on ourselves, we should not.
So how one will come to know that whether I am chosen
Or you have a choice. For that you will join choice. Why not? Whenever you are about to do something, you know whether it's a choice or not. Or it will just happen. You are not about to do it. It will just happen. Right? There's a difference in murder and accident. Right? So it will just happen. So whenever you have a dilemma, you don't do it.
No, like somebody has a nature only to do a propaganda. Whenever something wrong happens, he will broadcast it or he will do it. He'll tell it in a magnified way.
So that's why there's a Bhagavatam class where you will read this verse and understand I have to undergo a change in my nature, I have to modify my behavior, I have to reduce such things. Everybody has nature of lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion. Every man has a nature of getting attracted to multiple girls. But there's a training and education to avoid that. The nature is there to fall down, to glide down, to go to lower species, to get into bad habits, to do sinful activities, to break the regulative principles. Nature is there to sleep early morning and not wake up for Mangalarti. But there's an education and the intellectual conviction that no, this is good, I should do that, I should wake up, I should not break regulative principles, I should be disciplined. Right? So we don't just say it's nature so it cannot be avoided. It is a conditional nature and it can be avoided by proper education, by modifying one's behavior. Like a child's nature is not to take bath, but he's trained. And once he's trained, then every day he takes bath without force. Every day he brushes his teeth. Every day he washes his hands. So we are born with a particular ignorance, but we have to use knowledge to change ourselves. So till certain extent we have changed, certain extent we have not changed, which we still call swabhav, nature, and we have to change it further. So we need help, we can't change ourselves. So somebody who has a nature of propaganda or bad news, he needs help to restrict himself. Do not go in every room and say, किसी को बताना मत. Right? Okay? So the whole purpose of education through Bhagavatam is to change, not to remain intact as we are born in illusion and ignorance. Right? Anyway, you have to die. You want to die intact? No. Then why did you take birth? In between birth and death, there should be some change for better. If not this life, at least next life there will be perfection. So anybody has a nature which is not as per scriptures. Education is required and help is required to change that nature. In the name of nature, a person cannot commit offenses. In the name of nature, a person cannot continue to be harsh, rude, angry, violent. And I will not be punished because it's my nature. No. No. Not at all. Right? Karma means your choice. And there's a reaction to it. So somebody is born with rudeness in speech, that doesn't mean whole life he does that. He has to undergo training to change it, and it's possible. At least he should eat tilgur on Makar Sankranti. Right? Tilgur gaya god god bola. some change will happen.
But then a justification comes is that I am not doing purposefully. I don't want to do it, but it's my nature. It's just happening. So you take it as an agent of the nature's law, in the sense I'm not doing purposefully. It's just my swabhav or.
Yeah, so we are helping you to change your swabhav. You just attend Bhakti Vaibhav class. Right? You have a particular nature, but that's detrimental to the community, and you are not doing it intentionally, so we give you that benefit. It's not intentional, but still it's detrimental, so let us help you out. Somebody will say, I am sleeping in the morning, that's my nature, I am not intentionally avoiding Mangala Arati. What you will say? No, we'll help you out, we'll wake you. You sleep early at night, right? So modification is required. It's all condition, na? Nature means conditional, na? Right? It's mode of nature. 3 modes of nature. And we have to come to mode of goodness. And mode of goodness, you don't spread distress, you spread happiness and joy. So when you do propaganda of bad news, you are spreading distress. Right? So you don't spread distress, you spread joy. So you are in particular lower mode, we need to modify. Right? Is that okay? Next. Yes, Chaitanya.
Just extending the, like what he's asking. We were talking about natures. So there are some other kinds of nature also. Like say somebody is Kshatriya nature, somebody is Vaishya nature, somebody has a. So even can that also be changed?
Well, it's not so easy, but it can be used. It can be used in service of Krishna, and a person performs Bhagavad Vidhi nicely, then he can undergo some discipline changes. That's possible. Because basically this, see, we have to understand guna and karma. Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmana is guna and karma. So, and both guna and karma are under the 3 modes. But when you are performing sadhana bhakti, you are trying to be above the 3 modes. So by going above the 3 modes, it's possible to change. But because we don't 24 hours perform sadhana bhakti properly, so we again come back to the lower modes. So at least it should be used in Krishna's service.
Okay, but by doing devotional service, it's possible to change if one does it throughout.
Well, yes and no. There is a restriction. There is a restriction to certain karma, but certain gunas remain. For example, your guna and karma, suppose is Vaishya. So by becoming a brahmachari, you are avoiding the karma of a businessman. But some guna and thought process may remain, which will help you in life. That's normal, that's nothing wrong. Everybody has that element. But if you want a very frank answer, today there is no Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. All are Shudras and lower. Kali Yuga. So the discussion doesn't work. What change will happen? So only by chanting and hearing we can come to pure goodness to be able to go back to Godhead. Otherwise we use our lower base Shudra as servants of Krishna and servants of devotees and perform our duties. So today the guna is obedience. Lower than Shudra means obedience. Even that is difficult. So where are Kshatriyas and Brahmanas today?
There's some tinge, like you can see.
Some tinge, what you will do?
Means why I'm asking, because say somebody has a Brahminical mindset and he is supposed to do some management type of service. So then...
because there is mixed mindsets, it's not pure mindset, because there is mixed mindset, and if he is able to do it and if it is required, he can try to do it. He doesn't have to 24 hours do management. Management is few hours. Rest time is just Brahmanical only, na? If you are given a management service in 24 hours, how many hours? Morning, 5-6 hours morning program? Any management? Sleeping 6-7 hours? Any management? 2 hours bathing, eating, wearing clothes, applying tilak, little bit reading, 2-3 hours. Any management? No. So almost 13, 15 hours, 18 hours are gone. Right? Only 5-6 hours of service or 8 hours, whatever. And that too is mostly administration, routine work. How many great strategies of manager nature a person does sitting in the chair? Mostly he does administration. You have to sign bills, you have to meet guests, you have to sort out fights of two devotees. You have to attend meetings. Right? Okay, few hours you'll have to do some strategy, some vision, something like that. That's Brahmanical. Right? So you have to understand, even a Brahmana has to do what we understand as Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Even a Brahmana has to clean his room. So that's Shudra. But actually he's not a Shudra. Right? Labor work. Even a Brahmana has to count money or think of profit. So there are some elements there, but the prominent one is Brahmanical. That prominent one is missing today. Right? Ideally, it is very, very rare for a person to change from one varna to another varna. But by Bhagavad Vidhi, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's propagation of her holy name, it is possible. But that requires very good chanting and hearing. Okay? Ideally, it's very difficult. In earlier ages, that can happen only if you perform sacrifices and die, and next life take birth in a higher class family. Then you can go from Kshatriya to Brahmana or Vaishya to Kshatriya. Very rarely Vishwamitra went from Kshatriya to Parshuram. Otherwise, very rare. Okay. So, coming back to both the questions, there is some nature of devotees you will find which is not changing since 20-30 years, in spite of doing full morning program, nice chanting, nice reading. Because that is in the genes, in the seed. It's like you have a seed of Karela in the garden, and every day you put honey, sweet rice, sugar syrup, and sugarcane juice. So what you will get at the end? Mango? Sweet Karela. That's a bitter Karela only. Because it's in the genes, it's in the seed. So there are some things which are in the seed. When the child enters the womb, there is some consciousness. And that grows up, and the fruit of that may be a rude speech or frequent anger or something like that. So the seed is very difficult to change, but there can be a restriction because of mode of goodness and because of chanting and hearing. And that's what we are attempting in ISKCON. That the seed is there, but still there is a restriction so that not much damage is done to the community. So I can understand what you are saying. The nature is difficult to change, and that's true. But it's not that everybody should have the same nature, then only they can be devotees. Devotees can have different natures. As long as they are not harming their and others' spiritual growth, that's fine. Okay? So as yesterday we were saying, if there are 100 same boys in the ashram, not interesting, If you have one more Sharad in your room, would you enjoy life? Right? Just giving an example. It's like that. So different natures are okay, no problem. Nothing is not wrong and right. Just that whatever nature I have, I use it in service of Krishna. I make sure I grow spiritually, and it should not be harming others' spiritual growth. Okay? Yes, Purushottam Hari Prabhu.
Brahmana with the Kshatriya attitude, exactly what it means.
Well, basically the qualities should be of a Brahmana: honesty, truthfulness, austerity, self-control, peaceful, cleanliness. At the same time, just as a Kshatriya manages and fights with the enemy, a brahmachari or brahmana should be ready to fight with Maya and manage the preaching activities. So that's what we should be doing. Okay?
Prabhu, like this nature, changing of nature can also be a measure of advancement or not advancing in spiritual life, or it has nothing to do with advancement?
Well, not changing of nature, reducing of lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion, and nature based on these anarthas, or behavior based on these anarthas. But if at all if you're talking about nature and advancement, that's my answer. But if you're only talking about advancement, then there should be increased taste in the holy name, increased desire to serve devotees, more and more compassion for living entities. That's advancement.
Yes, sir. No, just like you took the example of seed and seed being like that, and that's why the nature is not changing. But the person is doing devotional service for 20, 30 years, 40 years. So that means some advancement must be happening, but these things are not changing, like anger and like that.
No, anger should change. Anger is not in the seed. Anger is because of lust. And lust is because of passion. So, and if you're chanting every day, you should come in goodness. So in goodness, the lust doesn't become anger. The lust gets purified. The bitter seed I am talking about is certain qualities. It takes time. But at least there is a variation in bitterness. It's no longer heavy bitter. So weak bitter. It's dilute bitter. Dilute. See, Karela doesn't change, but if you dip it in sugar syrup and eat, you'll have some dilution. It's like that. So there's some dilution. And if the nature doesn't change and a person is performing nicely, we should not judge that person.
One more question, Prabhu, I had regarding this. Sometime when I went in bus party, so we used to meet, these kind of people who have sort of Kshatriya kind of mentality, and they say like, Maharaj, we can do whatever you want and just tell us with whom we have to fight, and like that kind of nature. Like we will do something for Hindutva, and like, so these are not the people to whom we can ask, okay, you sit here and chant 4 rounds or 5 rounds. That they will think like, okay, we cannot do that. So how ISKCON should engage such sort of people? These days they are rising also, like with this wave. So
they are pretenders. When actually something happens, they are the first to run away. So don't believe when they say. Just tell them, sit with me and chant. Wait, right? ISKCON doesn't change its product for people. Our product is chanting, hearing, reading, chanting, dancing. Just because he has a different nature, so I engage him in a different way, no. That is not ISKCON. Basic but devotional service is common. Yeah, service-wise they can do a different service. They can stand on the gate and take care of the crowd. That's possible, if they want that. Service-wise, it's okay. But the basic process doesn't change. ISKCON may have one day use of weapons, but that's not today. Not in this generation. Unless a war starts. Prabhupada had written Nectar of Devotion, even atom bombs can be used in Krishna's service. But not in our lifetime. Unless a war starts. Okay? Yes, Rasbihari.
What I'm making sense of what you are telling is a person in a Vaishya mentality can be a pure devotee, free from lust, greed. A person in a Kshatriya mode can be a pure devotee free from lust, greed, and anger.
Yes.
But Kshatriya is dominated by passion, so how he will
No, so the mentality of occupational mentality continues.
and
Like,
still he will be a pure devotee, like free
yes,
from.
like Bhaktivinoda Thakur sitting on magistrate's chair. He's a pure devotee. But he's having that kind of discrimination and mentality to punish people and make justice and follow the British rule. So he may continue the occupation in one, because a pure devotee also continues practicing Varnashram. He doesn't suddenly become beyond Varnashram. Finally, Bhaktivinoda Thakur became a Babaji Maharaj. He became beyond Varnashram. He was already beyond Varnashram. But Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Swami Thakur didn't take Babaji, because he said, my father took Babaji, and that is, I cannot compare myself with him. So Prabhupada also didn't encourage Babaji, and there is no Babaji initiation in ISKCON, though it's a bona fide Gaudiya Vaishnava practice. So even a pure devotee in ISKCON would continue to follow Varnashram, even if he's beyond Varnashram. He's beyond mode of passion, but he'll continue to follow Varnashram.
But how come a Kshatriya is dominated by passion?
No, so the same occupation he continues without passion. Like Arjuna, is he a Kshatriya?
Yes.
Is he a pure devotee?
Yes.
That answers your question? Yes or no? Doesn't answer or answer? It answers, but it cannot say yes.
But
Think over it.
Vaishya qualities engage in Krishna service.
Well, that's dovetail. A pure devotee, he maintains his occupation. The occupation is under a particular mode. The devotee is not in that mode, but still is maintaining. He is maintaining that occupation. Like now we had skit, and some people maintained the character for some time, though they were not under that influence of that quality. So pure devotee maintains the character, maintains the occupation. The occupation requires passion. The pure devotee is not under passion, but he maintains the character, maintains the occupation, so that the preaching and general public doesn't get disturbed. Is that okay? So when you observe, it will look like he is in under mode of passion because he is doing Kshatriya's activity. But he is doing that activity even though he is not under mode of passion.
He is using passion in Krishna, like lower modes in Krishna.
No, he is displaying activities which are under passion, but he is not under passion. Like Lord Shiva, he displays uncleanliness and crematorium residence and madman dancing naked, but he is not under tamogun. But he is displaying activities which generally people under tamogun do. So the difference between being in under passion and displaying activities under passion. In other words, acting. Like Krishna crying and hungry. He is displaying hunger, he is not hungry. But he is displaying the activity of a child. And a child is generally hungry and naughty. Is that okay? You want one more example?
But Krishna, now it's
Next.
I have a question there. Related to
Go
this.
ahead.
Prabhu, as mentioned that Shiva displays that quality of tamagun, etc. Like, being with ashes and all those things he puts on his body. So is he, like, in a normal case of a person, when he displays, such things, he'll definitely have an impact. But how is Shiva not impacted by such a tamagun?
Because beyond. He's beyond three modes. Being always connected to Krishna, he's not impacted. He's vaccinated by the holy name.
But we will definitely get tamagun if we display that, right?
We already.
Naturally.
If you have a doubt, that's bigger tamagun. Right? Okay. Next. Question, verse. Go ahead.
As long as Vidura played the part of a Sudra, being cursed by Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated at the post of Yamraj to punish those who committed sinful act.
Yeah. Next verse. Wait. Well, wherever the vacancy cannot be allowed and wherever there is no expansion. So when Brahma came as Haridas Thakur, there was no replacement because he was expanded. He expanded. So some demigods expand. So in this case there was no expansion. And vacancy, Yamraj having vacancy means bigger problem. Right? So at one time Indra had to fall down, so there was a vacancy for some time. Brahma managed it, and that was okay. But finally, when Brahma couldn't manage it, so he had to get Indra back. So both the things are there. Next verse. Pado?
Having won his kingdom and observed the birth of one grandson competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaj Yudhishthira reigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brothers, who were all expert administrators to the common people.
Next verse.
Insurmountable, eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought.
So, anything and everything in this material world is temporary. Temporary means it will be destroyed. More than that, it will undergo a change. And that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dhiras tatra namuyate, don't be disturbed because change is inevitable. And this change is done by time, Kala. Kala will make anything and everything change. The chair you are sitting is going to change. The kurta you are wearing is going to change. The body you are having is going to change. The friendship you are having with others is going to change. The relationship which you are having with your parent is going to change. Everything and everything is going to change. So one should not be disturbed by change. So Dhritarashtra, here it is indication for Dhritarashtra that is attached to family affairs, and a change is going to come. It's going to be finished. The comfort you are having is going to finish. The health you are having, the wealth you are having, the reputation you are having, the happiness you are having, the distress you are having, the pain you are going to having, everything is going to be changed. So one should not so much get attached to things around which are anyway going to change. If you are attached, you will be in distress, because soul is eternal and what you are attached to is permanent, temporary. Eternal, permanent soul attached to temporary item is bound to be unhappy because the temporary item is going to be destroyed. So any attachment is bound to give us unhappiness. So if you want to be happy, don't be attached to temporary. Be attached to permanent, and there's only one permanent, that's Krishna. And the second permanent is we. So we should be attached to Krishna permanently. Then we will be happy. Kala. Kala makes changes possible, 6 changes. You all know those 6 changes? Which ones? Everything is undergoing 6 changes. Okay? Next.
विदुरस्तत्तविप्रेत्य दृष्टराष्ट्रम् अभासता राजन्निर्गम्यतां शीघ्रं पश्येदं भयमागतम्. Mahatma Vidura knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra, saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you."
You have read the purports of these verses yesterday? No? Okay, purport.
Purport. Cruel death cares for none, be he Dhritarashtra or even Maharaj Yudhishthira. Therefore, spiritual instruction, as was given to old Dhritarashtra, was equally applicable to younger Maharaj Yudhishthira. As a matter of fact, everyone in the royal palace, including the king and his brothers and mother, were raptly attending the lectures. But it was known to Vidura that his instructions were especially meant for Dhritarashtra, who was too materialistic. The word Rajan is especially addressed to Dhritarashtra significantly. Dhritarashtra was the eldest son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed on the throne of Hastinapura. But because he was blind from birth, he was disqualified from his rightful claim. But he could not forget the bereavement, and his disappointment was somewhat compensated after the death of Pandu, his younger brother. His younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhritarashtra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the factual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons, headed by Duryodhana. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother-in-law Shakuni. But everything failed by the will of the Lord. And at the last stage, even after losing everything, men and money, he wanted to remain as king, being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhritarashtra in royal honor, and Dhritarashtra was happily passing away his numbered days in the illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthira. Vidura, as a saint and as a duty-bound, affectionate youngest brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from his slumber of disease and old age. Vidura therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, which he was actually not. Everyone is the servant of eternal time, and therefore no one can be king in the material world. King means the person who can order. The celebrated English king wanted to order time and tide, but the time and tide refused to obey his order. Therefore, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly reminded of this false position and of the factual fearful happenings which had already approached him at that time. Vidura asked him to get out immediately, as if he wanted to be saved from the fearful situation which was approaching him fast. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthira in that way, because he knew that a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira is aware of all the fearful situations of this flimsy world and would take care of himself in due course, even though Vidura might not be present at that time.
So herein starts Vidura's instructions to Dhritarashtra, for which he came back to the palace. And he is very straightforward, very sharp, because Dhritarashtra is at end point of his life, highly attached from the beginning till now. And Vidura has tried many ways to educate him. It didn't work always. So now he wants him to get out quickly, take an immediate response towards his old age. So he's going to talk about, as we heard in the skit and you have read, very strongly, so that he comes out, even calling him indirectly a dog. So he's talking about his death now. And death is inevitable. So we should learn not to get attached to anything, especially post or subordinates or having dependents, leadership. We should not be attached. We should see it as a service, and we are doing service as much within our capacity as we are told to do by our seniors, by the spiritual master, but without any attachment to the position. Otherwise, we will all again be next Dhritarashtra. Being attached, cannot leave, cannot give a successor, and disturb others' spiritual growth. So death is inevitable. So before death, one should prepare oneself in such a way that one can easily come back to Godhead. Death is inevitable. Recently, there was a news in Borivali, there was a cardiologist doctor, you heard? He early morning got up, took breakfast, went to his clinic, he had a heart attack and he died. No medicine, nothing happening. And he was taking care of bypass surgeries and all. So he had a heart attack and died. So who can say what will happen? Nobody can predict. So these instructions are very important. To develop renunciation, reduce attachment, and get attached to Krishna. Get attached to the spiritual goal of life. Okay, we stop here. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll meet at 2:30 again. Thank you. So these socks I have